I arrived in Santa Maria with a broken heart and an empty wallet. The tiny South American town seemed like the perfect place to escape my collapsing life. After losing my job and being dumped by my boyfriend in the same month, I was desperate for a fresh start, or at least a pause button. The charm of the town's cobbled streets and colorful markets offered a small but much-needed distraction. But 2 weeks in, a dull ache began to radiate from my lower molar, quickly escalating into a relentless, throbbing pain. I had lost my insurance back home, and the cost of dental care in the U.S. was out of the question. When I mentioned my predicament to the elderly woman who ran the guest house where I was staying, her face lit up. "Dr. Morales?" she said, with a toothy smile that revealed more gaps than teeth. "She's very good. And affordable." Desperation dulled my caution. The next day, I found myself walking to her office, a narrow building squeezed between a butcher shop and a boarded-up bookstore. The sign outside was faded. Clinica Dental Morales. Inside, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and something else. Coppery. Metallic. The waiting room was empty, and the receptionist was nowhere to be seen. After a few minutes, a woman in a white coat emerged. She was tall and thin, her face angular, her smile wide and unnervingly perfect. "You must be Ms. Adams," she said in flawless but accented English. "I'm Dr. Morales. Come in." Her office was small, cluttered, and dimly lit. The dental chair sat in the center like a throne in a decaying palace. The walls were lined with shelves, overflowing with jars of odd, murky liquids and unrecognizable objects suspended inside. I told myself they were tools of her trade, relics of local traditions. "Please, sit," she said, her voice soothing. As I leaned back in the chair, she examined my mouth, tutting softly. "Oh, yes, a bad infection. This tooth needs to come out immediately." I hesitated. "Do you use anesthesia?" Her laughter was light, almost musical. "Of course. I'll take good care of you." She turned away to prepare, and I stared at the ceiling, trying to ignore the growing unease in my chest. Something about the room felt off. There were no diplomas on the walls, no certifications. When she returned, she held a syringe in her hand. "This will only pinch a little," she said. The world blurred soon after the injection. My limbs grew heavy, my mind foggy. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. But I was awake. My vision swam as she loomed over me, her perfect smile splitting wider. "Do you know why I became a dentist?" she asked conversationally, her tone too casual for the gleam in her eyes. "Teeth are the keys to the soul. Did you know that? Each one tells a story." She turned to a tray of instruments, selecting something that glinted sharply under the dim light. "I collect them," she continued. "Not just the teeth, the stories. And your story." She leaned closer, her breath warm against my face. "Your story will be exquisite." I tried to scream as she brought the tool to my mouth, but my body refused to obey. Pain shot through me, sharp and unrelenting. She hummed a lullaby as she worked, ignoring the tears streaming down my face. When I woke, I was no longer in the chair. I was in a small, windowless room, lying on a cold metal table. My mouth ached horribly, and when I touched my face, I realized with horror that my lower jaw was bandaged. My tongue probed the empty sockets where teeth had once been. The room was filled with jars, like the ones in her office. But now I could see their contents clearly. Teeth. Hundreds of them, of all shapes and sizes. Some were pristine, others cracked and stained. And among them floated other things, pieces of bone, fragments of jaws, and things I couldn't identify. A sound at the door made me freeze. Dr. Morales entered, her white coat speckled with red. "Ah, you're awake," she said, her smile as wide and chilling as ever. "Don't worry, I'm not done with you yet. You have so much more to give." I tried to scream, but only a guttural, broken sound escaped. She chuckled softly and stepped closer, the glinting tool in her hand once more. "Now let's see what other secrets your soul holds." But the moment she turned to grab another instrument, something inside me snapped. Adrenaline surged through my veins, cutting through the fog of whatever drug she had used. I spotted a scalpel lying on a nearby tray and lunged for it, my hand trembling but determined. She turned back just in time for me to slash at her arm, making her drop the instrument she was holding. She screamed in rage, and I stumbled past her, clutching the scalpel like a lifeline. My legs were unsteady, but sheer terror propelled me out of the room. I ran blindly down a dimly lit hallway, her shouts echoing behind me. Somehow, I found an exit and burst into the night, my lungs burning and my vision blurry. I flagged down a passing car and begged the driver to take me to the police station. The driver, wide-eyed and horrified by my bloodied appearance, didn't ask questions. The police raided Dr. Morales' clinic the next morning. What they found was worse than anything I could have imagined. Hidden rooms filled with human remains, detailed journals documenting her macabre work, and photographs of her victims, each labeled with dates and chilling annotations. She had been operating for years, preying on the vulnerable who couldn't afford proper dental care. During her interrogation, she revealed her twisted belief that extracting teeth allowed her to harness the essence of her patients. She saw herself as an artist, creating something eternal from the lives she destroyed. The authorities assured me she would never see the outside world again, but the damage was done. I left Santa Maria as soon as I could, but her chilling smile and the sound of her lullaby still haunt my dreams. And every time I look in the mirror, the gaps in my smile remind me of the nightmare I barely escaped.
Like, subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell icon to never miss a scare.